Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring a seriously fascinating story. Really, it's more of a psychological metaphor that reveals a simple but absolutely profound secret to calming an overwhelmed mind. It's a journey that takes us from utter chaos straight to absolute clarity. I am so excited to guide you through this because we're going to look at the actual mechanics of true, lasting peace. But before we meet our main character, I want you to ask yourself a question. How do you quiet a restless mind? Take a second and really think about it, especially if you ever feel, just weighed down by the stress and constant overthinking of modern life. We literally all have those moments. Or, let's be real, days or weeks where our brain just won't turn off. Well, the concept we're breaking down today offers a brilliantly practical answer to that exact problem. So let's get into part one, the storm of the mind. I want you to meet Marco. He's a 24-year-old guy living in this small mountain village, and unfortunately for him, his mind was an absolute relentless storm. His daily struggles were intense. Marco's head was constantly full of thoughts, just coming and going all day long. And this wasn't just a minor distraction, right? It made him perpetually uneasy and exhausted. He literally couldn't feel calm, his sleep was a total mess, and honestly, the saddest part is that the sheer weight of his thoughts made him forget how to smile. It was taking a massive emotional and physical toll on his everyday life. You see, Marco was trapped between two incredibly exhausting extremes. On one hand, he was constantly sad about his past, and on the other, endlessly worried about his future. His mind was essentially bouncing back and forth like a pendulum between yesterday and tomorrow. And what does that mean? It means his mind was never, ever allowed to just exist right now, in the present moment. Desperate for some kind of relief, Marco finally decided to take action. He'd heard these rumors about a wise old man living in a faraway village up in the hills. Now, this wasn't just any old man. He actually used to be a famous city psychologist who had helped countless people find peace before he packed it all up to live quietly close to nature. So, hoping this mentor could somehow cure his restless mind, Marco packed up and embarked on a long, really tiring journey spanning several days. Eventually, he reaches this small, incredibly peaceful house completely covered with greenery. When Marco finally arrives, the old man is just sitting quietly on his porch, eyes closed, looking impossibly peaceful. Marco walks up super softly and makes this desperate plea. He says, "Grandfather, my mind is very restless. I cannot stop thinking. I want peace in my heart. Can you help me?" Wow, you can really feel the pure exhaustion and vulnerability in those words, can't you? That brings us to section 2, the unspelled glass. The old man calmly opens his eyes, smiles, and gives Marco a very specific and honestly quite unusual task. First, he takes Marco out to the yard and fills a glass with water completely to the brim. We're talking so incredibly full that literally just breathing on it heavily might make it spill over. Then he tells Marco he has to walk from the house all the way to the edge of the village and back without spilling a single drop. Talk about a massive anxiety-inducing challenge for a guy who's already super anxious. Now, to really grasp how tough this task was, you have to picture the environment Marco was navigating. This village wasn't some quiet Zen sanctuary. It was a total frenzy of sensory distractions. The road was narrow and super busy. People were walking and running right past him, shopkeepers were yelling out to their customers, and dogs were barking everywhere. It's kind of like the ancient equivalent of having a smartphone buzzing with 100 unread notifications while you're trying to do deep work. But despite all this crazy noise and movement, Marco accepts the challenge. He didn't look around at all. His eyes stayed locked only on that glass. Step by careful step, he walked incredibly slowly. He completely ignored the running children, the yelling merchants, the barking dogs, and even the surprised looks of the villagers. Interestingly enough, the villagers didn't try to disturb him. It was almost like they knew he was in the middle of learning something profoundly important. Which leads us right into section 3, the power of presence. So Marco successfully makes it back to the mentor, and he proudly announces he hadn't spilled a single drop. Nailed it. But instead of just congratulating him and sending him on his way, the old man smiles and asks him a totally unexpected question. "Did you hear the dogs barking?" He also asked if he'd noticed the children playing right there on the side of the busy road. Marco is totally caught off guard by this. He admits, "No, I didn't see or hear anything. I was only focusing on the glass." And right there is the light bulb moment. Without even realizing it, Marco's singular, intense focus on the physical task right in front of him had completely blocked out the overwhelming chaos of the village. The noise was there, but for Marco, it just didn't exist. And this brings us to the old man's ultimate revelation. He smiles gently and tells Marco, when your mind stays in the present moment, then there is no space for fear, no confusion, and no extra thoughts. Boom, that was it. This was the exact secret to calming the mind that the former psychologist wanted Marco to experience firsthand, rather than just being told about it.
Moving on to our final part, Section 4, Finding Peace Within.
Because Marco was only thinking about the water in that exact second, his mind went completely quiet. He literally didn't have the mental bandwidth to be sad about the past, and he had absolutely zero energy left to be afraid of the future. You see, true, real peace isn't something we go out and find in some faraway mountain village. It's a state that is already inside us. We access it by keeping our mind fully anchored in the present moment, totally free from past regrets and future anxieties. The peace Marco traveled so incredibly far to find wasn't an external destination at all. It was an internal state unlocked by absolute presence. That evening, Marco bows his head, finally understanding the secret. To calm the mind, you just have to keep it in the current moment. As sunset arrives, the old one smiles while the last light touches the ground and the birds fly back to their nests. And by nightfall, Marco begins his walk back home. But he was no longer that restless, tortured young guy he was at the start of our story. He was genuinely peaceful inside. He was fundamentally changed, all because he finally figured out how to quiet the storm. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. What is your glass of water today? We all have barking dogs and busy streets in our lives, right? The endless emails, the looming deadlines, the anxieties. But what is the one simple present task you can focus on so intensely right now that all that external noise just fades away? How can you anchor your own attention in the present moment to find that inner peace that is already sitting right there inside you? Think about that as you go about the rest of your day. Thank you so much for exploring this profound concept with me.